I've owned my Cessna 182 for 5 years now, and I love it. It has a lot of pros that are worth talking about that we'll cover in this video. But by far the best part about owning a Cessna 182 is its X factor. It has this superpower, if you will, that very few, if any, other airplanes possess, and it's my favorite part about owning and flying this particular airplane. So stick around, because I'm going to tell you what that is at the end. The first thing I love about the 182 is its useful load. Really how much you can carry between fuel, people, baggage, stuff. Just in general, how much does the airplane have to work with? And my particular 182 has just over 1,100 pounds of useful load, which is quite a bit. I mean, it's not 206 status or some of those bigger airplanes, but for a 4-seat airplane, it can carry a lot, and it's gotten a really good reputation for this. So to put it in context, if I have full fuel, which I'll cover kind of fuel burn here in a minute, but that's a lot of fuel. It's 75 gallons. I can still carry about 660 pounds worth of people, gear, and stuff, but you very rarely need all 75 gallons of fuel unless you're really planning on a long leg or you need fuel because where you're going doesn't have some on the field or something. But more commonly, I'm flying with, half tanks or something, which when I have only half fuel aboard, I can carry almost 900 pounds worth of stuff, which makes it a true 4-person airplane. You can really carry 4 people and fuel and a little bit of baggage. And so, a 172 is not really a 4-person airplane, but a 182 in every respect is definitely a 4-place airplane. So the useful load has just been one of the biggest assets of owning a 182 because it just has a lot of versatility because you can carry a lot of stuff. Next is fuel efficiency. My 182 will burn about 11 to 13 gallons an hour, depending on how high you're going, which I'm really, really happy with. If you're flying anything bigger and faster or anything turbocharged, it's usually gonna drink a lot more fuel than that. On the other hand, yes, you could find airplanes that do 6 gallons an hour and go as fast or faster than the 182, but they're usually not gonna have the useful load to go along with the 182. So all of these things are definitely a trade-off. But one thing to keep in mind about my 182 is that since I've got 75 gallons of fuel on board, 11 to 13 gallons an hour is a lot of gas. I mean, I usually have to stop and make a pit stop far before the airplane does. And so, you're not burning that much fuel versus how much is on board. So I have never really run into any sort of fuel issues or range issues with the 182. It doesn't burn that much gas, and it's got a lot of gas to begin with. So fuel efficiency and range here are a really awesome perk of the 182. Fuel efficiency also leads us into range, and I've always been very, very happy with the range of my 182. Like I mentioned, I usually have to stop myself and take a pit stop before the airplane does. Practically speaking, I've got about 5, sometimes upwards of 6 hours worth of fuel on board if I've got 75 gallons and about 13 an hour, which keep in mind we can do better than 13 an hour if we go a little higher and lean it out. But that's about 5 hours or about 650 miles at 130 knots worth of range. So, I can get from Texas to Idaho and pretty comfortably in 2 stops. And so, really the 182, the shorter way that I describe it to people is the 182 is awesome. It will take you anywhere in the country that you would like to go if you can just sit there long enough, and it's very, very comfortable to do so. So I've always been very happy with the range of the 182. Next is short field performance. The 182 has awesome short field characteristics. So if you're looking to go into the backcountry and do some explore some unpaved airstrips and things, the 182 is an awesome platform for that. You're not necessarily gonna be landing on like gravel bars, like little ones like the Super Cubs are and things, but it's a really respectable platform. And so if you go fly in Arkansas or Idaho and some other places, you'll find a lot of 182s because they're just awesome airplanes for that environment. But one of the things that really makes them awesome that we've kind of already covered is the range and the useful load, and the fuel burn to get out there, because you have enough to really take a load pretty far into the backcountry and still have enough fuel on board and useful load remaining also to get back if you need to. So it's just an awesome all-around platform, particularly in short field scenarios. Next is speed. Now the 182 is not a speed demon, but if you're used to coming out of like 172s or other smaller trainers, it's definitely an uptick. You know, the newer 182s go about 140 knots in cruise. Mine does more like 130, but if you're used to going 100, 110 knots, you're gonna love the extra 20, 30 knots that you're gonna get out of the 182. That's not as fast as like a Bonanza or as a Cirrus or something like that, but you do get a little uptick in speed. I have noticed that it's not really enough to make a huge difference unless you're going really long ranges. So the times that I've been doing some exploratory flights with other 172s, like I'll go to Arkansas with some of my buddies that will rent 172s, and I'm not like that much faster than them. If we're going 50 miles and they take off first and then I take off after them, we're pretty much arriving at the same time. So it's not going to add up to a huge difference, but hey, speed is speed, right? I also really appreciate the IFR stability. So how stable is the airplane when you're flying in instrument conditions and you're shooting an approach and you can't see outside the airplane? I've found that the 182 is very easy to fly. It's very forgiving. You know, if you trim up the airplane, it loves to just kind of maintain the same airspeed, and so you can trim it up all nicely for an approach, and it's very forgiving. And so in IFR, I feel very comfortable for how stable the airplane is. One more thing I love about the 182 is how comfortable it is. I found the cabin to feel very roomy. And in fact, it kind of has a boxy feel to it, whereas sometimes in low wing airplanes, they can have a little bit more of a curvature to the cabin, and the 182 doesn't have that because, you know, the sides of the cabin just go straight up and then they meet wings at the top. And so for that reason, they're not having to kind of curve on top of you and have to put your head to the side while you're flying it. And so I'm kind of a bigger guy, but I've always felt that the 182 is very comfortable, particularly in the back. The passengers have a ton of leg room, so whether you're going a short distance or into the back country or going, you know, all the way across the country, the 182 is a very comfortable airplane. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of the video that the 182 has a superpower, that it does better than any other airplane. Few other airplanes, if any, possess this superpower. So what is it? Well, if you think about all the pros that I just went through, the 182, the fact that it's got a good useful load, good fuel efficiency, good range, good short field performance, good speed, great stability, and a lot of comfort. The 182 is one of the only airplanes that will do a little bit of everything. It has something to show for in all of those areas. It's not going to do any one of those things better than any or all other aircraft, but it is one of the only, if not the only airplanes that will do a little bit of all of those things. And so as I was determining what airplane to buy, it really came down to this, that I figured if this 182 was the only airplane that I ever owned, it was the first and last airplane, and I owned it for the next 50 years, will it do my mission? Well, the answer is yes. And I couldn't say that about many other airplanes, or really any other airplanes, that it's going to do a little bit of everything. It's going to get me across the country. It's going to get me into short field scenarios. It's going to be comfortable. It's going to fly FR. It's going to do a little bit of everything. And so it's just an awesome all-around airplane. And so if you look at any other airplanes that can do one of these things better than the other, it's probably going to be sacrificing that in another area. You might have another airplane that's faster, but it's probably not going to carry as much. Or you might have one that will go farther, but can it also land short? You know, it's trade-offs. It's all about trade-offs when owning an airplane. And the 182, I have found you have to do the least amount of trade-offs because it'll do a little bit of everything. So I found that the 182 was a perfect airplane for me, but that doesn't mean it's the perfect airplane for you. And so to help you decide that, I put together a separate video, I'll link it up in the corner, that talks about the 6-point mission, or the 6 questions you can ask that will identify the perfect airplane for you based on the mission that you need it to perform. Ahead of time, I apologize for the audio. It wasn't as high quality as what I have now, but I think the content is really solid, and it'll definitely get you down the right path towards deciding what airplane is right for you. So if you're looking for an airplane right now, whether it's a 182 or something else, I'd love for you to leave me a comment down below and just let me know what you're looking for. But absolutely go watch that other video too, as I think it will help you identify the airplane that is going to be a great fit for you. So thanks for watching. I hope that this was helpful to you in your aviation journey. And as always, I'll see you next Monday morning.